And good morning and namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining Hindu Lounge, yet another episode of Hindu Lounge. This is Hindu Lounge episode number 81. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact, the Hindu Policy Research and Advocacy Initiative, is an initiative of World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA. Hindu Lounge at Hindu Lounge, we talk about the contemporary American Hindu issues, and we come live every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. And today, here we are talking about yet another Sunday, and we are going to talk about another set of contemporary American issues. So, thank you for joining us. Today, we are talking about a couple of very important and key issues. As you can see, I'm sharing here. We are going to talk about promoting an event that is taking place actually in Toronto, sponsored by no less than Toronto Public Library and Ryerson University, which is promoting Indophobia and Hinduphobia. And we are also going to talk about the new CEO of Twitter, who has created a caste warfare opportunity for people who are absolutely Hindu haters who take every opportunity to hate Hindus. So, with that, I want to welcome our co-host Utsav Chakrabarti. Utsav, you may want to turn on your video. Utsav is the executive director of Hindu Pact. He is an amazing, intellect. He frames the issues very succinctly, very and very clearly, very intellectually, and I'm always glad to be partnering with him on Hindu Lounge. Utsada, welcome to Hindu Lounge and namaste. And by the way, I am Ajay Shah. I'm the president of World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA. Utsada, welcome to Hindu Lounge and namaste.
Namaste, Ajay bhai, and this is our 81st show. So, those of you who have been watching us for the last 80 shows, thank you for watching us, and thank you for joining today again.
So what a topic, huh? We never seem to run out of these kinds of topics, and it's. But I want to start with something so that gained a lot of news coverage across the world actually, and I want to connect that to the events that are taking going to take place in Toronto, right? So let me share this one particular tweet so that you had sent on behalf of Hindu Pact. And so here is the tweet. And here, can you please walk us? Can you please walk us through this? What is this about? So there was a Sri Lankan factory manager who was accused falsely uh, of blasphemy. Now, the Sri Lankan factory manager was working in Seattle court, and he was accused of blasphemy. And so that take it from there. Tell us what happened to him.
Ajay bhai, I don't want you to show the graphic images, so just keep this on our faces, and but just to give you an overview of what happened about 2 days ago. Um, 2 days ago in American times, there was a very tragic incident that unfolded in Pakistan in the city of Sialkot. Now, if you all know, Sialkot is a city that borders India, the other side of Indian Punjab. It is actually a very, it's almost into India. This city was given away to Pakistan, but actually, if you look at the map, if you just draw a straight line, it actually should fall in India. So Sialkot is a border town in West Punjab. Uh, Very heavily radicalized population segment there, because that area has been providing a lot of terrorists over the last 20-25 years, young youth for recruitment in terrorists for groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, uh, not very far from the headquarters of these terrorist organizations. So the general population in Sialkot is heavily radicalized Muslim population. It's mainstream Punjab, that is part of Pakistan. Uh, that area, there was this factory, and it's also a hub because it's a very fertile region. It has a decently up, high quality of life, and compared to Pakistani standards, and a better per capita income. So these people have been heavily radicalized for many decades now. They have international export businesses that go around in textile manufacturing, in leather goods industry, a lot of manufacturing sector jobs. So one such international firm with a Sri Lankan manager, uh, he was working there and taking care of this factory, and these people were putting up big posters of radicalized Islamic messaging in his company, in his factory. So he made the mistake, and this shows you the level of radicalization in Islamization in these societies. He made the mistake of removing a poster that they believed amounts to blasphemy, and that triggered a mob reaction. And these are not terrorists or anything. These are average Muslim people from the society gathering together, pulling him out, beating him to death, and burning him alive, whatever little life was left in him, in the middle of the street, taking pictures and posting videos all over the social media. And the video you saw that Hindu Pact put out there was actually sent to Hindu Pact by somebody in Pakistan, because these videos were circulating within Pakistan as a matter of pride that many of these local young, hundreds of men from the city of Sialkot were circulating around. So that was such a tragic, horrific incident that unfolded in front of everybody. And this person is not a local. This person is a Sri Lankan, a non-Muslim, with a pretty high position in terms of economic status and education within that environment where he was living in. He was one of the managers in that company. So it was not a contextual local event. and to have an international person, body, international person with a foreign passport be treated in this manner tells a lot. And that's been the main conversation out there. And as Hindu Pact, we have been making a lot of points and giving a lot of information about the situation of religious minorities, especially Hindus and Sikhs in Pakistan, and especially young women, for the last 1 year since we have started work. And we wanted to the reason we talked about this so much on social media is because we have been warning this for a long time. The fact that this person was a Sri Lankan gave the media an opportunity to talk about it. But this happens in Pakistan in some form or the other every day. There is somebody from the Hindu or Sikh community, a young girl, in a minor, who is kidnapped and forcibly converted or treated this way. So we have been mentioning this over a period of time, warning our lawmakers, asking them to take immediate and urgent steps to contain this in the form of economic pressure on Pakistan, in the form of political pressure on Pakistan. But as things go, we'll have to see how far that is effective. But we will continue to raise our voice. We'll continue to talk about this incident particularly because this incident is a bellwether of what is happening in the ground in Pakistan. So that's the background of this incident, and I hope, and the Pakistani government is in a damage control mode, so they only do damage control in two ways. They will try to do a comparison with India and pick some event in India from many years ago and try to say, hey, Indians also do this, which is like the worst way to do damage control. And and then they will also talk about, oh, we are taking steps, we are trying to arrest these people, as if just providing justice itself is a huge deal for them. But let me remind you that this exact situation unfolded with somebody far more important within the Pakistani society, which is the governor of Punjab. The governor of Punjab was actually murdered by his own bodyguard for trying to protect somebody, a Christian woman, from blasphemy law. So imagine this. Forget a Sri Lankan non-Muslim who was a foreign national with no Islamic credentials. This was done to the governor of Punjab, Salman Taseer, an extremely powerful Muslim individual within Pakistan. And not only was it appreciated within their society, but the person who committed this crime and murdered the governor of Punjab, even though he was hanged, he was declared a martyr by the Pakistani society. There are memorials built in his name. So this is the situation, and this happened a couple of years ago, but this is the situation that we see Pakistan in, and this is what we have been warning for a long period of time. Ajay bhai, your sound is not there. Yours.
So the question is that, where does this leave this civilized world if just by these kinds of allegations, if someone is brutally murdered and burnt alive on the street and all that, and the rest of the world is trying to have a civilized dialogue with these people, this it should not be lost on people that just recently, less than a month ago, the PTI government that rules Pakistan actually made a deal with these lunatic fringe in Pakistan, and released their leaders from the prison, and almost invited them to be part of the mainstream. If you're on one hand, the government of Pakistan invites these lunatic fringe to be the part of the mainstream Pakistan. On the other hand, and releases their leaders without any repentance, expression of repentance by these leaders. They are released from the prison, and they're let out. And these are the followers of these people in one way or the other, go out and commit these heinous crimes. So really, I mean, how is this civilized world supposed to deal with them? So you said that, well, they will come out and they will say that, yeah, we are going to arrest the people who are the perpetrators of this crime. They're going to say that we'll not let this happen again. And Imran Khan goes around and apologizes to the Sri Lankan government and apologizes to the world. But really, they don't do anything to stop these things from happening, because this happens all the time in Pakistan. It has been well documented. And B, I mean, there is really, on the flip side of it, they are making political deals with these people. There is, if you are any other country, it doesn't matter whether you're in India or you're UK or US or Canada or any country that believes in democracy, that believes in the rule of law, how are you supposed to deal with these people?
Well, the thing is that what we should also worry about is, not only has Pakistani government and Pakistani military been very cozy with both the democratically active part of the jihadist movements, as well as the militarily active part of the. So you just mentioned how Imran Khan is making deals with Tehreek-e-Labbaik, which is the pretty much the party and the supporters who do these kinds of activities, and how they work hand in hand and scratch each other's back. But that's not the bigger concern. Both Imran Khan and Tehreek-e-Labbaik and many other groups also form the backbone of the Pakistani state national security apparatus, which is nothing but a global jihadist apparatus. So the Pakistani army, the Pakistani state, supports and hosts five globally recognized, UN recognized terrorists that are wanted in India. They support and host 27 globally recognized terrorists and UN recognized terrorists that are wanted all over the world. So this is nothing compared to what the real picture is and what the state actually is involved in. So the irony here is that, as we talk to lawmakers, as we talk to thought leaders, think tanks, and people of repute and power within our countries, including in America, uh, we are seeing that this has been normalized. This has been going on for so long that this has been normalized now, and the world literally has said, okay, fine, I mean, it's Pakistan, of course they will support terrorists, let's make deals with them. So that is what should be bothering us. And that is also something that we should be working harder as Americans, as Canadians, or people in Europe, or any other country around the world who support and encourage democratic interactions. We have to work harder to tell the world that this cannot be normalized. A country that hosted Osama bin Laden for 8 years must not be given a place at the table for anything. So so that's something we have to work on, and that's something we're trying to work on, because that involves humanity, that involves saving lives of people around the world, which is what we care about, including those of Hindus, the 6 million of them who live in Pakistan.
Absolutely. Utsada, your camera is not in the right position for some reason. You may want to look into that. You're facing sideways instead of, you normally face straight at the camera, but not today. For some reason, it's at a different location. So
Yeah, so I'm gonna fix that right away.
all right. So, but let me share my screen in the meantime. So the reason I this show is kind of ironic and interesting in some ways is because here we are talking about this blasphemy killing in Pakistan, and we are talking about how this is, how a innocent person in Sialkot just was brutally murdered by the mob in Pakistan, but at the same but look at what the narrative that is being built in the West. What is it about? It is not talking about Pakistan. It is not talking about the 1,000 girls who are abducted, forcibly converted, married off. These are teenage girls who are 12 and 13 and 14-year olds who are married off to men who are much older than them. And we have a project called Chingari which addresses that. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the demographic erosion of minorities in Pakistan. But what are we talking about in Canada? In Canada, in Toronto, we are talking about Modi's India, how Hindu nationalism has eroded the world's largest democracy. Now, the speaker is a well-known Hindu hater, and I'll let you describe what his past is and what he has done. Why this is why this is a continuum when it comes to his tirade rather against the Hindus from academic perspective. But to on a, okay on a in an era where mere rumor of insult to a religion or religious figure uh, is enough for this kind of brutal murder. And we saw that happening in Bangladesh recently, where the Hindus were, Hindus were killed and raped, and Hindu properties were burnt, and temples were desecrated. And now we are seeing this happening in Pakistan. And what are we talking about? We're talking about Modi's India and Hindu nationalism. So what are we? Why is it that is this the classic deflection technique by uh, by these people, so that the attention is taken away from what is happening in the Indian subcontinent outside of India, and highlight highlight the things that are happening in India and made up things that are happening in India. What is it? What is their goal? What are they trying to achieve here?
So, Ajay bhai, the thing we have to understand is that these people have been at it for a while. So if you look at the event that is happening at the Toronto Library, this is being co-sponsored by Ryerson University, which is infamous for supporting the Dismantle Hindutva conference. So these people have been at it for a while. Christoph Jefferlot is known, and
So the speaker, by the way, is Christoph Jefferlot. Yeah, tell us something about it.
so Jefferlot has been known to be a long time India hater, and if I can put it politely, he is considered to be the intellectual end of that spectrum. So he has always been extremely critical of India, even when BJP was not in power. So it's a red herring when these people say that oh, he's against Modi, or these people are criticizing India because in Modi or BJP is in power. That is not the case. These very people have been criticizing India even when BJP was not in power. So they're they just use the narratives that the oppositions parties in India use when BJP is in power, and when they need to target Modi, because that makes them more credible and mainstream. So this entire thing of Hindu nationalism and Modi is the flavor of the day, because that's the most easily digested narrative that these people can latch onto to add their layers of further bias and hatred on them. Now, in the case of Christoph Jefferlot, he's extremely well recognized intellectual. So he's not somebody who's a ad hominem hater. He couches his dislike and his targeting of India in under the garb of intellectualism and under the garb of research. Uh, so he's the one who creates the straw man, so that others like Audrey Trushkis and all these other minions can use those straw man narratives and target Hindus and India. But he is the creator of the straw man end. And so I believe that he has been doing this for at least a decade and a half. He has grants from recognized institutions like Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. He was a fellow there at one point, and he spoke at the Dismantle Hindutva conference, which is a red flag right there that tells you that okay, this guy has bought into and is willing to put his reputation on the line to target India. So he's pretty out there when it comes to these issues, and he constantly churns out anti India narrative, which in the West is used to target Hindus. So this is the funny thing, that all this Indian nationalism, Hindu nationalism, Modi narrative, that many people think, oh, it's just a fight between two political entities, the opposition versus the BJP. In the West, in UK, in US, in Canada, it translates into direct hate against Hindus. And that is something that we are addressing, and that's something.
And we have documented this, right? And we have
Yeah.
documented that these are the kinds of seminars and these are the kinds of events that eventually lead to Hinduphobia on high school campuses, on college campuses. And once you start this Hinduphobia among the students, impressionable age students, especially in high school and colleges, that results in not just bullying, which is a milder form compared to physical violence, but actually it leads to physical violence, and it goes beyond the college campuses also. I mean, if you we give example of dot busters that occurred in 1980s in New Jersey, but you can go beyond that. I mean, just a couple of years ago in 2018, I believe, there was a Hindu man who was at a bar in Kansas, and he was killed over there. And there was there was a restaurant, and there's so many incidents I can't even start talking about them in a brief period of time. But there was a restaurant which was in Texas. Not only was it vandalized, but what struck me there was that there were some murtis over there, and these murtis were beheaded. And FBI was investigating this as a hate crime, but they've still not released their finding. But the reason I bring this up, Utsada, is because this starts by brainwashing the people against a particular faith. And in most of the time in America and in Canada and in the West right now, it is Hindu Dharma, because there is the same university uh, organized a program this month. This month, the same university organized a program where they invited a Yazidi Nobel Prize laureate, a woman who was enslaved by ISIS, and for 2 years. And that event, a talk, nothing but just a talk by this Yazidi Nobel Prize laureate, talk about talking about her experience as a ISIS slave, as an ISIS slave. That event was cancelled. That event was cancelled because it was deemed Islamophobic. So now someone who speaks against their own slavery experience can be cancelled because it's perceived to be Islamophobic. And here we are talking about the largest democracy in the world, right? And they can do it without any repercussions.
So Ajay bhai, I just wanted to highlight the fact that this is possible because there is a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So there are two pronged approaches that anti-Hindu, anti-India Islamists have. They would on one hand target India on, propaganda, hyped up narratives, sometimes bordering on the edge of, strawman narratives, most of the time bordering on the edge of strawman narratives. And then they would diminish anything that points to a globalized, radicalized Islamic jihadist narrative. They will diminish it by using the bogey of Islamophobia. And that has been mainstreamized in America. And we have had other shows discuss it, why that has been mainstreamized, because it works with the neo-left uh, approach towards capturing political power in many of the Western societies. So it's a joint effort where, you know, ethnic minority Islamists are being used as in conjunction, in intersection with global left to capture power. And that's a whole different conversation. But one thing I wanted to point out about Christoph Jefferlot is that the reason, the point I wanted to make is that don't get into a trap of thinking that this guy or people like these who are hosting these events are just anti-Modi. Be careful about that, because a middle of the road, an uninformed observer would think, so what, they're just criticizing a political party in India which happens to be the BJP. You guys don't like it, that's why you complain about it and you say it's Hinduphobia. That's not true. Christoph Jefferla has been targeting India from a Pakistani lens since before 2014, when Modi actually won the elections. So he was in Carnegie Endowment for International Peace before BJP or Modi ever came into the picture. And he has been targeted. He was a non-resident scholar of the South Asia program there. And he has been targeting in Hindus, and he has been targeting India from before that period. So be aware of that. And I will, in the next part of the program, as we go forward, we will show some connections to, again, within a degree of separation, to Pakistan. And then we will also highlight how this is not very different from the Dismantle Hindutva conference in terms of the objectives they wanted to achieve and the methodology that they are using to achieve those objectives.
So Manan Ahmad, who we have talked about in past, tweeted and said that, and is a faculty member in US, and he tweeted and said, really glad that this important book and conversation is happening in Toronto. Solidarity with the organizers. Who is Manan Ahmad again?
Exactly. So Manan Ahmad is the guy from Columbia University, and we have covered this in an entire show before. So please go through our history of shows, and you will see how extensively we covered Manan Ahmad during the Dismantle Hindutva conference. Because in Hindu Pact, we look at things that are behind the things. So, there was a lot of aggressive outrage and anger, rightfully so, during the Dismantle Hindutva conference that looked at the front ends of the people organizing it and people speaking in these places, including Christoph Jefferlot. But we took a step back and peeled layers and saw who were behind those speakers and who were behind those organizers. And in the East Coast, on the eastern seaboard of the United States or North America, I should put in, because in this case Toronto is also in the game. You have Manan Ahmad, who's a Pakistani professor, very close to their national security advisor. Very underline that part. Very close to their current national security advisor, who is the equivalent of Ajit Doval. For those of you who are from India, you understand the role that Ajit Doval plays in Indian national security apparatus. Similarly, the national security advisor of Pakistan is a friend of Manan Ahmad and has worked together with them. So this is Manan Ahmad, who is behind and in support of these events. He was the one behind the Dismantle Hindutva conference on the Eastern Seaboard from Columbia University, and he's also supporting this event. How is he doing it? He's doing it with a person named Sanjay Ruparelia, an Indian quote-unquote woke leftist, neo-left professor who is at Ryerson University, who previously has worked with Manan Ahmad in Columbia University, where Manan Ahmad currently is. So this is the same pattern that we observed during Dismantle Hindutva conference. You had Manan Ahmad, a Pakistani, close to the Pakistani national security apparatus, exciting Indians and Indian left professors to target India during Dismantle Hindutva conference and during this Toronto library. Similarly, you have on the West Coast, you have Huma Dar, extremely controversial Hindu hater, literally a Hindu hater from UC Berkeley, who is also doing the same thing on the West Coast. So you have these linchpins of Pakistani origin who are in academia, who are trying to, manage these anti-India, anti-Hindu outrages and create Hinduphobia and Indophobia using the academic structures, using the academic freedoms, using anti-India professors and thought leaders, and kind of bringing them under one umbrella of dislike and hate.
Yeah, and if you go to a little bit forward, this is the person you were talking about. I'm sorry, I should have gone to this slide a little earlier, but this is the proxies that people who hate who hate Hindus, who build a narrative against India, they use these proxies, right? They use people like Sanjay Ruparelia, who have a Hindu name, and now they become the front, and they can basically spew any kind of hatred they want against Hindus once they have a person with Hindu name hosting the event.
Correct. And just imagine this situation. If Manan Ahmad was doing this event and was one of the speakers and the co-sponsors of this event, a lot of young Indian Americans or Indo Canadians or Hindu Canadians or Hindu Sikhs or Canadian Sikhs would not be impressed by the propaganda, because they would see through the propaganda. They would say, oh, it's a Pakistani professor who is close to just do a little bit of Google search and you will see how close he is to the Pakistani military apparatus, national security apparatus, intelligence apparatus. Oh, this guy is just doing the job that he's asked to do by Pakistan. But no. So Manan Ahmad creates these front ends who have Hindu sounding names, who have an axe to grind against Hindus or against India, like Sanjay Rupareli. And if you look for one, you will find 10 of them. Many of them are so open that Angana Chatterjee, one of them, was openly receiving money from a Pakistani spy, Ghulam Nabi Fai. But she continues to do that even after she lost her job. Like she's equally active now as she was 15 years ago. So they're shameless. Arundhati Roy, another one of them. So these are people who are at the beck and call of these handlers, if I can put it that way. And they do the job, in this case, they are hurting Hindus in America, Hindus in Canada. And, it's not good for the community.
Absolutely. So I want to. So what are we doing, right? And I think we should tell people that Hindu Pact and Hindu Pact people in Canada, Hindu Pact Karyakartas, Hindu Pact volunteers in Canada are active on this issue. We are not taking this and just talking about it. We are actually acting on this. And we would like everyone who is listening to this show, watching this show, to join us, to join the Hindu Pact Canada group in protesting this particular show. So that we have put together some concrete demands, right? And we have said that we would like the Public Library, TPL, and the Ryerson University to adhere to the following demands. And these letters may be a little too small to read, so I'm not going to bother showing this. I'm just going to read it out for the people because the font is a little too small. But here is what we are asking. We are saying that, look, this particular event absolutely must be cancelled. You cannot go forward with this event, which is on December 9th at the Toronto Public Library. And the event title, again, for those who are just joining us, is Modi's India: How Hindu Nationalism Has Eroded the World's Largest Democracy. We are demanding that this event be cancelled immediately. Basically, we are alarmed that this is an attempt by two publicly funded institutions in Canada. One is the Toronto Public Library, and the other one is the Ryerson University. Uh, Ryerson University, to promote hate against Hindus. And these are government-funded institutions. Just like we asked that dismantle Global Hindutva Conference be cancelled. We ask that this conference be cancelled. We demand that this conference be cancelled because this particular event is being used to spread a false and concocted narrative about the vibrant democracy of India, a country with which a vast majority of the Hindu Canadians have deep emotional ties. This is nothing short of an attempt to promote a hateful and denigrating narrative against the Hindu community in the guise of sanctimonious and pontification on India's democracy. Uh, we are also saying that Ryerson University and Toronto Public Library issue an immediate apology to the Hindu community for the anguish caused by this upcoming blatantly Hindu phobic event. And lastly, we are saying that the university and the library set up a program to train their employees and students to understand India, Hindu Dharma, and Hindu culture so that their employees and students become more religio culturally sensitive. In today's era, where we talk about diversity and inclusion, to have a culturally, ethnically, and religiously insensitive event like this is absolutely not acceptable. And the people who are playing a part in organizing this must be held accountable. Utsada, would you like to add something?
I think it's very well put, Ajay Bhai. And the fact that we have the Hindu Pact in Canada has decided to take this head on is very encouraging. It's a very young chapter. It's a very young group of people out there. Uh, Through, if those of you who are watching this program, please join. If you are in Canada, please join this effort, and we will have something going out in public, including on our social media. So watch our Twitter page, watch our Facebook page, watch our Instagram page. We will have an active campaign out by Monday, which is tomorrow, and we you will see more activism on this. This needs to stop yesterday, because uh, what is happening is, they are basically using Hindu tax dollars. There are thousands of Canadian Hindus who are paying for this, for the Toronto Public Library, paying for Ryerson University's budget, and they're using your tax dollars to create events and sponsor events that is going to eventually deplatform you and demonize you to the point where your kids will be ashamed to call themselves Hindu.
And
And
that is the goal, right?
that
That
is the
is their
goal.
express goal.
That and the thing is that it's very easy to see. I mean, they did the exact same thing during the Dismantle Hindutva conference. It's been almost 2 months now, 3 months now, and they took a breather. It didn't go well for them, the Dismantle Hindutva conference. So now they're back, and they're back at places where they had the most easy going. So Ryerson University was one of those platforms where they had the easiest platform to do their propaganda from. So they are back there again. I will not be surprised if the same thing starts happening again in Columbia University or in UC Berkeley or in places in America as well, because it's a textbook style of propaganda that they are doing. And you know, I can go ahead and say that this is one of the reasons, if they spend this much money trying to do these things, that's why the Pakistani embassy in Washington DC is running out of money. It really looks that way. So
I
that
mean,
is
like, look, I mean, the money allegations are,
yeah,
always,
yeah, yeah. So I
difficult to prove,
yeah,
and we are not really making any allegations about who is
we are
getting
not,
funding
we are
from
not.
where.
Yeah,
But we what we want to say is that, look, there are, uh, you know, there are direct ties that we can see at a philosophical level between the people who are perpetrating uh,
and
this
at a
event,
contact level, and at a
and at a
contact
contact
level.
level. Yeah, but but definitely at a philosophical level, definitely at a propaganda synergy level, all of that. But Utsada, the thing that is baffling, right, is that a lot of these things are just factually wrong. I mean, I think that you put together, along with other volunteers, you put together this, and it may be a little hard to read, but maybe you want to go over some of these things as to why
Correct,
this
correct.
assumption, why they what they're saying about Indian democracy is just wrong. It, it it is. I mean, you would expect more academic integrity from these kinds of from a person who is well regarded academician with four major international grants. You'd expect some amount of intellectual integrity, right? But the assumptions that he has made about Indian democracy, and Ruparelia, who is also a well regarded faculty, they're just blatantly false.
Correct. And the overall line of thinking, even though I was involved in the developing the line of thinking, I must give full credit to Jay Bansalji, who actually wrote many of these points. And this is exactly what we wanted to highlight. And I'm going to just read through some numbers which really is a slap on the face of these individuals who are organizing this event under the garb of academic freedom, because it's it exposes them as nothing but fake news peddlers and propagandists. So here are some points. In the most recent elections in 2019, the voter turnout in India was 67%, which is incidentally 10% higher than the voter turnout in a developed democracy like Canada in the 2021 federal elections. So 10% higher voter turnout, one measure of democracy. Next measure of democracy: the ruling party in India, which is currently ruling, got 37% of popular votes. Okay, the highest vote share any political party in India has received since 1989. Again, numbers are on you. So, since in the last 40 years, in the last 30 years, I'm sorry, last 30 years, the highest mandate any political party has received, Modi has received. Again, a marker of democracy. The current ruling party garnered 303 seats. Okay, again, one of the highest in the any political party has ever garnered in recent history of India. Okay, and there's not one person globally, one country globally, that has raised a finger at the efficacy of India's election process. In fact, countries from around the world send observers to India to learn about how this amazing exercise in democracy is performed by a country with 1.3 billion people, with not so first world infrastructure and first world abilities to manage and travel with things around. Okay, Prime Minister Modi himself received 64% of the vote share in his own constituency. And currently, and I might add this, you know, uh, this is the important part. By non-biased international media outlets that do these surveys, they feel that currently Prime Minister Modi has the largest popularity amongst any major leader in the world, including Boris Johnson and Angela Merkel, and leaders in Canada and in United States. So 80%, he's the most popular leader in the world as we speak now. So I don't know what the failure of democracy these people are talking about. I really don't know how these academics and these individuals even come on stage and speak about Indian democracy failing at this point of time. Then let's look at their canard and their trope about, minorities in India. Minorities in danger in India. And also think about it in the context of what just happened in Pakistan, and what we talk about all the time is happening in Pakistan every day, happening in Bangladesh quite often. Uh, the population share of minorities in India in 1951 was around 15%. Okay, right now it is more than 20%. So the number of minorities in India has actually gone up. Okay, in contrast, in Pakistan, the population of religious minorities, it was 12.9% in 1951. In 2017, it was 2.14%. It's out there for you. And this is something that Manan Ahmed should answer for when next time he promotes events against India. And this is something Christoph Jefferlot should answer for, because they should be hosting these events about other countries in that region. Then let's look at Bangladesh. In 1951 census, the Hindus were about 22% of the population in Bangladesh. Okay, in 2011 census, they are just 8.5%. Think about that. So uh, so this is the reality that we are dealing with. And I just wanted to point out one more thing, Ajay bhai, which is a very well researched, again, a completely non-biased institution. In fact, for all that matters, Pew Research Center is accused of being more anti-Modi than anything else. And in their own survey from June 2021, just a few months ago, okay, in India, more than 82% of the Hindus actually believe in respecting all religions. Okay, more than 82. That's a huge majority of the population. So every point that this event at the Toronto Public Library claims to be making against India is just not just blatantly false, but outright propaganda. And that is what makes us believe that this is actually has nothing to do with Modi or India or Indian democracy. This has everything to do with building a narrative where Canadian Hindus and Canadian Sikhs and Canadian Indians face institutionalized discrimination because of these tropes and canards that are constantly being spouted in the academia.
So let me make a couple of observations and ask you a question. One of the observations that I have is that, I mean, looking at this, it's obvious. Looking at the data from the population growth, looking at the data from Pew Research, it's pretty obvious that the minorities in India are doing much better than minority in other countries in the Indian subcontinent. And by extrapolation, we can say that the reason the minority in India are doing much better than minorities in the other surrounding countries is because Hindu Dharma truly accepts the diversity in terms of religious practices and practice of faith, which is in contrast with the uh, you know with the atrocities that take place on minorities in the surrounding countries. Now, in that case, and since minorities in India are flourishing and they're doing really well in terms of their population growth, in terms of their political achievement, India has had Muslim presidents. Pakistan has not had, Bangladesh has not had a Hindu prime minister or a Hindu president, right? India has had a Muslim defense minister. India has had Muslim home minister. India has had other places, justices in Supreme Court who were Muslims. So, by all measures, the minority in India is flourishing. In that case, the people who, like, Ruparelia and Christoph Jefferlot, these people should be happy with the way minorities are treated in India. What do they really want? Wouldn't they want the other countries in the region to be emulating India emulating Indian democracy rather than, uh, organizing an event like this? What are we missing here?
So obviously these people are not interested in facts. If they were interested in facts, then you would be having a completely different conversation. And it's also quite obvious that these people are not into the business of speaking from their conscience, because in that case they would not be churning out piece after piece, article after article, narrative after narrative, targeting the very root of a civilization that continues to be the beacon of hope for democracy and liberal ideas and open-mindedness and freedom in that region. I mean, for whatever sake, India is the only country which has actually had free and fair elections for the last 70 years, barring small minor periods of 1 or 2 years. Uh, Pakistan had a military coup within the first decade of its existence. So did Bangladesh. So if people cannot connect the dots in this scenario, then obviously they are not interested in connecting the dots, because the contrast is very high. The contrast is too stark for people not to see the agenda here. So I don't think people like Sanjay Ruparelia or Christoph Jefferlot are interested in facts. I don't think they're interested in a conscientious discussion as well. I think it's a one-sided propaganda-driven narrative, and because now in America and as well as in Canada and many other countries, academia can get away with this kind of blatant propaganda because of the environment that is being fostered there nowadays, where literally only one point of view is acceptable, and if that is the mainstream point of view, nothing else is allowed. You will have events like this. What bothers us, and the thing that we have to stop now, is this cannot happen on Canadian Hindu taxpayer dime. That's the part, or Canadian Indian taxpayer dime. That's why it is their responsibility to stop this. Because if they don't stop this right now, they will reach a stage where somebody like ISIS, somebody who was enslaved by ISIS and a Nobel Prize winner, will be deplatformed under the garb of stopping the spread of Islamophobia, which is exactly what happened to Nadia Murad just a few weeks ago in Canada. So I think the end game of what we are facing today is what Nadia Murad faced last week.
And contrast that with the history of minority treatment of a minority in West compared to India.
I'm sorry, say that again, Ajay.
Yeah, contrast and compare the treatment of minority in India
Mhm.
versus treatment of minority in the West. We talked about Indian subcontinent.
Well,
Uh,
okay.
we did
So,
some
so
research on the treatment of minority in
yeah,
West as well, right?
yeah. So I mean, this part is, and even Sanjay Ruparelia should agree with me on this part. I hope, because at least his woke environment does agree to some of this, even though they don't do much about it. Is that the Western world thrived on colonialism, and colonialism was based on a clear demarcation between human beings and clear discrimination between human beings, where there was a ruler and a ruled, and for most part of its history there was a owner and a slave. And the way in which Canada was conquered, in which immigrants in Canada were treated based on the color of their skin and on their ethnicity and on the basis of their religion, uh, with absolutely no hatred coming back from the people who were being discriminated against. It's a testimony to what many of the Western societies today, which call themselves progressive and developed, came from even 2-3 generations ago. There was organized, state-sponsored, race-based discrimination in our society in the Western world just 2 generations ago. So they don't have a position to have a moral high ground. you know Compared to that, the concept of slavery in Hindu civilization, and thought processes that emerged from Hindu civilization, didn't exist. When the rest of the world, when the Romans and the Muslims, and after that the Muslims, and before that Egyptians were actually owning slaves in the world, Hindus never owned slaves.
Yeah.
So So this is something that we have to talk about, because this is important. This is something that our children should know. This is our what something that our younger generations should know. I have to clarify, though, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that Hindu society didn't have discrimination. Hindu civilization,
Right.
every society in the world has had discrimination, including discrimination happening right now. But
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
what I am clarifying is the ideas that created those discriminations were not as blatant as were in the Judeo-Christian world, in the Islamic world, or even in the pre-Christian Western world, as compared to those in Hindu dharmic civilization. There were discrimination on all sides, but
Yeah.
dharmics never said we own slaves, and we legitimize it in our holy books.
Correct. Also, so we already talked about it, that academic freedom is, people, use this academic freedom very selectively. Otherwise, Nadia Murad would be speaking over there. I want to move on to the next topic, so that, and this is, you know, this keeps,
No, Ajay bhai, I just wanted to take some of the comments from Sridhar Nair. Sridhar Nair ji has been writing some of the comments in response to our live show, and I really appreciate Sridhar ji for your beautifully thought out comments. I do agree with you that there has to be more active engagement from our side in correcting the narrative that is being presented against us. I like your suggestion that we should make demands on educating people, students and scholars, you within these university campuses, within the public libraries, to at least make an attempt to balance the propaganda that's being thrown at us. I completely agree with you, Sridharji. So thank you for your comments. Bipin Jindal ji had written that you are using logic to figure out why such things are happening, and that's a futile exercise. Uh, I agree with you, Bipin ji, but you know, as Hindus, as people who are trying to come up with solutions to some of the hatred that is being targeted against us, we believe that the best way to reach our own audiences, to activate our own supporters in Canada and in America and in other parts of the world, is to use rational and logical perspectives and factual information, because our own people will understand the need to activate themselves and speak up against these discriminations. Ajay,
that is the
no,
other
Ajay bhai,
approach. That is the other approach,
that is not approach.
and that works much better with Sudha sometimes. You may want to
No,
think about it.
but we should at least have the understanding. It is always good to understand things in rational and logical ways. How we respond is our choice, and it's the choice of the individuals.
Sudha, this works better sometimes. You give one more try.
Please, Ajay bhai, don't do.
Okay, we can intellectualize this till the cows come home, but at some point, you got to wake people up and really go and take a little bit more, more aggressive approach. Because look, I mean, otherwise we'll keep intellectualizing this thing, and there's, we have to find the right balance.
Ajay
All
bhai,
right,
you
so that
of all people know that we are not into intellectualism. If there is any organization that is known for being activist and extremely aggressively activist out there, it is Hindu Pact.
I
And
don't know about that. I beg to differ. I think we still kind of err on the side of intellectualism.
Ajay bhai,
Uh,
come to a protest in next time in DC when you are just 2 hours away. You never come, so you
yeah.
will see the activism part of things.
All right. That's the next thing then, I guess. So that has the last word on this. See. All right. So the coming to the next topic, and this is a topic that, there are people who say that. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this I didn't intend, but it happened anyway. So there must be. Yeah. So that the next topic, there are people now we have figured out in America who are just like people have class warriors and people have race warriors and all that. We now have caste warriors in America, and I'll give you an example. So that the biggest news item for the week for a lot of people was that one of the one of the Indians, Hindu, who grew up in India, went to IIT Bombay, got appointed the CEO of Twitter. His name is Parag Agarwal. And when he got you know, so when he got appointed the CEO of Twitter, all of a sudden the caste warriors started to look at his appointment through the lenses of caste. So the first they started tweeting, and they started tweeting saying that uh, in the grand Silicon Valley tradition of white cis men passing the torch to Brahmin cis men, Jack Dorsey is stepping down, and Parag Agarwal is the new CEO of Twitter. Will he also remain silent about caste? Now, remember, we have been talking about caste and Silicon Valley, where they want to designate in Santa Clara County caste as a protected class. The reason has nothing to do with discrimination. The reason has nothing to do with workplace inequality or any of that. All they really want to do is uh, make it easy to attack any Hindu or any person with a Hindu name, whether they're Hindu or not, to be taken down in a cancel culture because of their name and uh, because of their Hindu faith. So as soon as this person gets appointed, Parag Agarwal gets appointed the CEO of Twitter, this tweet by Dalit Deva, Tanimoy, is out saying that, look, here is another Brahmin cisman who is replacing another who is replacing a white cisman, Jack Dorsey. Okay, keep that in mind, Utsoda. And am I sharing the screen? Oh yeah, I am. Okay, all right. So then, Utsoda, another set of tweet comes out, and this from our cam. I'm going to get banned now for exposing the Tamil Brahminians on Twitter. That's what the new CEO of Twitter means. All right, the new CEO of Twitter, he's a Tamil Brahmin. And then all of a sudden, Utsoda, somebody realizes that this person, Parag Agarwal, is neither Tamil nor Brahmin, and whatever that means, because we don't even believe in caste. Then caste is Varna and Jati, but even in using their own phrases, this person is, the new CEO is none of them. And so what? So what happens now? Look at this other tweet that comes out. Remember, Microsoft went from Steve Ballmer to Satya Nadella, and Alphabet from Larry Page to Sundar Pichai. These companies still have caste discrimination while having leadership that is racially diverse but caste privilege. DEI is the need of the hour, caste in tech. Just a completely, uh, you know, a complete Hindu hatred, where they have no
So,
idea
so
what this person thinks. They have
I,
no,
I want
they
to
have
say something about
Oh,
this, Ajay bhai.
oh, Utsada, one second. Utsada, 1 second. Now, I'll just pause after this one. These are the same people, Tiny Moi and her ilk, who actually took a picture with Jack Dorsey holding anti-Brahminical whatever poster and said during Twitter CEO Jack's visit here it was in India. He and Twitter's legal head at Vijaya took part in roundtable with some of us women journalists, activists, and writers at Twitter India's, you know, uh, Emritat, Emritat to discuss the Twitter experience in India. Very insightful, no word mince conversation, and they're holding anti-caste. So, Jack Dorsey was their friend. Tanimo is in a picture with or her people are in picture with Jack Dorsey, and they are holding the poster she designed. All right, Utsoda, over to you.
So there is one. I just want to say one thing about this, and let's not get too detailed and into trying to find nuances here, because the most important thing to understand here is that the people who are complaining against Parag Agarwal uh, are actually, if you go back to the tweet where Tanimodi Dalit Diva writes about Parag Agarwal, two more slides back, what needs to be understood by people here is that people like Tanimoji Sonnarajan, who is Dalit Diva, the Twitter handle Dalit Diva, who has been running this campaign, and other people, there's a whole mass of people out there, in many non-Indians, including African American activists. they are so lazy about facts, they are so confident about the power of their lies, because it has been mainstreamized to that degree, that they are perfectly fine in not even pointing in completely lying. So to call Parag Agarwal a Tamil and a Brahmin by Tenmoji Soundarajan, who walks around America, in corporate America, in political America, as an expert on caste in India, for that person to call Parag Agarwal a Tamil Brahmin shows the level of laziness these people have in their research and their presentation, because they know that they can literally get away with anything.
No, it's not laziness. It's hatred, really.
No, no, no. It's
So the
also laziness.
I,
See,
if even
if there was somebody else, if there was somebody else who
yeah,
was saying this about any issue in the world, okay, they would, their own ilk would have pointed it out and deplatformed them, saying, hey, you don't deserve to talk about caste. You might hate Hindus, you might hate India, you might do whatever you want to do, but just the fact that you're so bad with your facts that we will find somebody else to represent this issue.
but
It-
facts never mattered to left. I mean,
right.
since when did the facts matter to left anyway?
So Tenmoji Soundarajan has reached a level of confidence which is so overinflated that she literally gets away with calling Parag Agarwal a Tamil Brahmin and still gets applauded
When he's
for.
neither Tamil nor Brahmin or any of
Correct,
that, right?
correct. So,
And
so this is the
Usman,
level of their the support they have in
and
terms of the people who hate Hindus and who hate India.
but
Like,
Usman, this is what people don't understand. That the no, none of us is for any kind of discrimination, racial discrimination, ethnic discrimination, discrimination on the basis of gender, discrimination on the basis of language spoken, discrimination based of economic inequalities, or based on whatever is based on birth of any kind, disability, whatever it is, right? None of us, because we are Hindus, because we believe in one soul pervading all universe, that we cannot even fathom the idea of discrimination. Now, that is not to say that Hindus have not discriminated in past, but philosophically, we do not subscribe to the idea of discrimination, and we definitely not in practice. Most of us in America practice any kind of discrimination. But we oppose, we strongly oppose this movement to classify caste as a protected class, a legal term, because it makes allegations like this very easy. And now the onus is on the accused to defend himself or herself. Because if if a person who is appointed a CEO gets attacked and gets branded for becoming a CEO because he is a quote unquote Tamil Brahmin, or he is a North Indian Brahmin, or South Indian, or he is of some caste or the other caste or whatever it is, it there is really no way for that person to defend himself or herself. There's no way for that person's uh, you know that person to that person's board of directors to come to his defense or her defense. Essentially, what I'm saying with Soda is, you put a person, a Hindu, in a defenseless position, and
no, no.
the easy
Their
way
goal
out
is,
in future what happens is,
yeah.
the same board of directors, the same stockholders who generally appoint the CEOs, will say, you know what, let's just take an easy way out. Let us not appoint this person as CEO. Or another way of doing it would be for a person who is going to be appointed as CEO to say, look, but you know what, let me make life easy. I'm just going to give up on my Hindu identity. I'm going to give up on my Indian identity. I'm going to change my name. I can't change my skin color, but I'll change my name. I'll shed my identity, and I will just adopt a name that
Yeah.
causes no controversy.
So basically it's the dehumanization of the Hindu name and the Hindu identity. They are going to take a Hindu to a point where anybody with a Hindu sounding name can never be in a position of power by virtue of their effort, merit, hard work, education, anything. Because the
Exactly.
moment they reach that position, they will be described as a caste hater, and they will be immediately deplatformed. And who are doing this? those who actually claim to promote equality and equity in the society. So this is the biggest irony of the conversation here. People working with the money and the power of forces around the world that claim to promote equity are the ones who are going to create a situation and a society where Hindus cannot literally survive.
Yep.
So this is and if we this is not stopped right now, there will never be another point of time where Hindus can achieve anything in their life by being Hindus. So this is worse than what the Aurangzebs of the world and the Mahmud Ghaznavis of the world, this is worse than that, because they physically eliminated and killed Hindus. These guys are going to intellectually and socially eliminate and kill Hindus.
Hey, so the reason I call this a caste warfare is, look at what happens after that. So Dilip Mandal, who writes for the print, is a journalist, supposed journalist. Uh, they, you know, he wrote, he found out that, oh, by the way, this guy is not a Tamil Brahmin. So he says, Parag Agarwal of Twitter signals a Brahmin cloud at IIT ending. Quota, a colloquial term for quota. In India, there are reservations and special admissions for people belonging to certain caste and certain class. And so he calls it quota, Kota, instead of Quota. Quota is now a Banya phenomenon. And the excerpt from his
No. You have missed out something even
no,
more.
okay, I
Okay,
was
I'll
just
tell
going
you
to
what
go
Kota
for it.
means. Yeah, Kota means there is a town in Rajasthan called Kota,
Yeah,
and that town has classes for people who globally would be considered underprivileged and poor
right,
kids. Okay, if you look at global standards, the people who travel from different parts of India to Kota to prepare for one of the most difficult exams in the world, the IITs,
right,
with nothing in their pocket, in global standards they will be considered the most underprivileged people in the world. That's where they get work hard. They work 18 hours a day to prepare and educate themselves for this test, and when they make it through, they succeed in lives, and eventually some of them become Parag Agarwals of the world. What this gentleman is saying, Dilip Mandal is saying, is that that city Kota where this kind of educational training happens is now moving from a quote unquote Brahmin control to a Baniya control. So essentially, they are trying to divide the Hindus also amongst different power centers, because that they believe will feed into the divisive narrative that they want to use to destroy the Hindus. So, and then notice how he's comparing it to the power structure of India, which has essentially historically moved from Pandit Nehru, quote unquote a Brahmin, I know whatever that meant in Nehru's context, and Govind Ballabh Pant, also with a last sound name that sounds like a Brahmin, to Modi and
so
Amit Shah.
let me point out a few things.
Yeah,
So first
yeah,
of all, I just wanted to say that Parag Agarwal actually is from Mumbai.
correct.
He's not even, I mean, his ancestors may have been Rajasthan, but I wanted to read this, and I wanted to point out a few factual things, right? So my hypothesis is, he says that Banyas with their financial might have breached the sanctum sanctorium of IITs. Money is playing bigger role than birth in certain caste. Change is welcome. So now, to your point, I completely agree with you that now they're trying to say, look, I mean, when everyone is rising, they're now trying to create fissure within the Hindu
Hindu
community,
communities. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that is one thing. And he's saying that my hypothesis is that the Banyas, with their financial might, have breached the sanctum sanctorium of IITs and might have outnumbered and outwitted the Brahmins. So again, now they're trying to create a contention among one class, one caste to the other. Again, people like us who don't even believe in caste, we see world in neutrality and say, let people with qualifications rise. But what he's saying there next is actually more interesting and sinister and factually wrong. If this is actually happening, then we will see many more Parag Agrawals in the coming future. Sociology of Indian politics has taken tectonic shift from Pandit Nehru and Pandit GB Pant to Mod Ghachi oil trader Narendra Modi. Remember, Modi is Modi belongs to other backward classes, the OBC designated by Indian Constitution. He is not treated as a by the Indian definition in Indian Constitution. He is not treated as a trader. He is from a community that actually produces the oil,
No,
and
so
he's a cleverly use of the word trader and banya and conflating them is what is sinister here.
so you have to
Second,
understand, Ajay bhai. Ajay
but
bhai,
wait,
you have to
Uttara,
understand.
let me just finish one more thing before
Yeah.
I turn it over to you. He's saying Jain trader Amit Shah. Okay, as a person with last name Shah, I can tell you that Shahs can be Jains or non-Jains, and I can tell you that Amit Shah is not a Jain. So again, I'm a Jain and a proud one, but Amit Shah is not a Jain, and I have nothing against that. In my family, we have had Jains and non-Jains all having the last name Shah. Okay, but again, to bring the Jain in this cleverly, to now create a fission between Jains and OBC, and branding the OBC as trader, and then trader, and someone who is a Brahmin. So I mean, all these labels are used for a reason, and that is to create these fissures within Hindu community, dividing the Hindu community, so that the Hindu, to bring about the destruction of Hindu society. So I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but I could not stop talking about when they brought up Jain in there, so I have to speak up.
No, I knew you would have to say something when when they bring in Modi and Amit Shah, especially calling Amit Shah a giant trader. But just so everybody understands this, you will see that both Dalit Diva Tenmoji Soundarajan and this gentleman Dilip Mandal, he's also a very well-known Hindu hater, academic in India. All these guys are trying to do is right. They're addressing their Western supporters. So they are so, they don't care about facts, they don't care about truth, they don't care about accuracy, because they know that the people who they're actually writing for actually don't know anything about India or caste or jati or varna or anything. The only thing that these people are writing for are Hindu haters. So as long as they can fulfill the objective of their audience, which is to diss on Hindus and deplatform Hindus and delegitimize Hindus, they will get away with it. And the fact that print actually provides a platform to this individual Dilip Mandal to write an article shows the level of compromise that many of these so-called, well recognized, well regarded media outlets have had. So just look at it this way: if tomorrow I wrote for print on any issue about radical Islam and stuff like that, and I had this level of inaccuracy in my article, the print would never have posted that article, never allowed that. But in this case, it's an agenda driven effort. Dalit Diva doesn't care if she calls Parag Agarwal a Tamil Brahmin or whatever. The people who support Dalit Diva, the people who support Dalit Diva's actual person Tenmoji Sunarajan, they don't even care about Hindu names or anything. They just hate Hindus, and they are propping her up to promote anti-Hindu hatred. How she does it, nobody cares.
And, and, and Jack Dorsey, who actually stood up with her poster,
Yeah.
and now now that
Because
he is
Jack
out
Dorsey
of,
doesn't know.
no, and now that
On
Jack
this
Dorsey
issue,
is out
Jack
as,
Dorsey doesn't know his front from his back.
no,
It's
no,
like one of those people, young people, who used to get tattoos of Chinese language without realizing what that tattoo read.
well,
You know,
well,
the-
well,
you, yeah.
no, I get that, but the point that I'm making, so that is that here is there people like Jack Dorsey should realize that they're being used as tissue papers, because he is standing there holding their poster, promoting their agenda, and they're all with smiles and everything else in a group picture with him. And the minute he resigns as the CEO of Twitter, he is now a white cisgender man who holds a position of power, regardless of whether he was supporting their cause for all this time. So this is what I think people should realize, that these are people who just have sinister motives. They're not just they're not intellectually honest, but they don't really care for other people, who at one they would just use them, and once they're finished using them, they move on and they label them whatever their narrative allows them to label them, or prompts them to label them, right? That is
Correct.
the problem.
Yeah, but Jack Dorsey doesn't, because see, what these people have successfully done is they have juxtaposed white versus black, white versus slave, former slave owners versus non versus slaves, the binary on Hindus, and created this whole artificial, privileged versus non-privileged narrative, without actually even letting people know. And this is the success of the of these people, and this is our failure as Hindus.
Yep.
We have not been able to tell the world that those slaves that the whites ruled over, and before the whites the Islamists ruled over, were us. For the past 1,000 years, we were the people who were sold in the streets of Baghdad and Bukhara as cattle. Okay, and that is our failure. The fact that Parag Agarwal today is unable to talk about his ancestors being sold on the streets of Baghdad and Bukhara, about the fact that his ancestors could not enter a building or sit on a chair with the British, even 4 generations ago. The fact that Parag Agarwal cannot talk about that is our failure. And in
Yep.
fact, I can assure you that Parag Agarwal probably doesn't even know that.
Yeah. Hey, so let me move on to thank you. Thank you. This is a great conversation. Thank you. And let's move on to our regularly scheduled segments. The first one is the Hindu Seva Charity of the Week.
मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं लोकहितं.
And Utsada, this week we present HinduLounge as the Seva Charity Act of the Week. I think this is the first time we are asking for money to support HinduLounge. HinduLounge, as you know, is the uh, show, this particular show, where we talk about the contemporary American Hindu issues from a unique perspective. We can use your support. I mean, we spend a lot of money on the production, to get the subscription to various production services, such as Restream and some of the graphics, sites and hosting and other things. And we can certainly use your support and become a little bit more professional by hiring admin and student interns and things like that. So we would like to have your support. Please, if you can, go to go and support HinduLounge. Go to hindupack.org, click on the donate button, and select HinduLounge as the charity. And your donations are all tax deductible. We are part of World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA, which is a 501c3 organization. So this week we designate HinduLounge as the Seva Charity of the Week. It is probably the first time we are doing that, certainly not the last. We appreciate all your support through the 81 episodes and one special music episode. So this is really the 82nd episode if you count this music special, and 83rd episode if you count one of the election specials that we did as well. Once again, thank you for all your support through the year and a half, or close to 2 years now, that we've been doing this. With that, Utsada, Hindu good news of the week. This is somewhat bittersweet, Utsada. The Hindu good news of the week this week is bittersweet. Because this statue from a village, Lokhari, in Uttar Pradesh, was stolen. There were about 20 such statues, or more actually. I forget the exact number, but these are the statues from 8th centuries. They were on a hill near a town or village called Lokhari in Uttar Pradesh, and these statues were stolen. And when they were stolen, Sotheby, which is a well-known auction house, decided to. They knew. I mean, all evidence suggests that they knew about this statue, and they still they put it up for auction. A lot of protests. 20 years it was being it was reported that it was stolen. People worked with Indian embassy and other organizations, worked with Sotheby to stop the auction of this. Finally, they are going to return this statue to India. They're going to stop the auction and return the stolen artifact to India. Look at the state. This statue is currently lying in a garden in English countryside. And look at the state with the moss covering the statue. Look at the pristine state it is supposed to be on the left hand side. And on the right hand side, the state in which this 8th century statue is in. Thousands and thousands of artifacts have been stolen and sold. Hindu artifacts, Buddhist artifacts, Jain artifacts have been stolen and sold in the West. The good news here is that at least this particular statue is now going to be returned back to where it belongs, to India, in Lokhari in Uttar Pradesh. Siddha, any comments on this?
Yeah, this is a yaksha. I don't like to use the word goat-headed goddess, and this is exactly what the colonial people uh, you know described it as. So it's a yaksha of with the from the tantric traditions, and this is very popular and was commonly used in the regions of the Indian subcontinent where the tantric philosophy was very popular. And this the fact that this went all the way to England is because of the value the people saw in its in its uniqueness, in its how you call it, exotic nature. And it didn't mean anything to those people. So they took these statues and put them in the middle of their gardens and used it as such. But it has a lot of spiritual value and religious value to the Hindus around the world, and actually even with the Buddhists, because this yakshini, as they would call it in Sanskrit, also was revered by the Buddhists. So again, another example of Hindus and Buddhists having a common ritualistic and ontological root, and in practice every day, is this example of these artifacts. So I'm glad that the yakshini is back in India. I hope Hindus today learn to respect it, because we have lost our traditions, we have lost our religion, and we have lost our history so aggressively that we don't even understand what these things mean to us. So I hope it changes.
I hope so too, Soda. A lot more work to be done. I know we are working on the Afghan artifacts, and maybe in next week's episode, you can give us an update on where we are on the Afghan artifact project that we are doing.
Yes, and I would love everybody to join us next week, because next week we are going to talk, give some updates. Hopefully, we have been making contacts. We have not been discussing it because it's a very sensitive issue. Afghanistan is not a safe place, and everything we are doing right now in terms of outreach and effort is under the wraps. But hopefully, we'll have something good soon.
That sounds great, Utsada. And with that, we come to the last segment of our
I
show.
just want to say one thing. I just want to add one more thing. Just last week, I saw photographs of one of the most prized treasures of the Hindu, Buddhist, and Zoroastrian community in Afghanistan. The photographs are of treasures that are of pure gold from the Seleucid Indo-Bactrian period. I will not give any further details.
Yeah, keep it for next week. Keep it for next week. Don't spoil the secret.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, I am going to move on to the most anticipated segment of this show, and that is the Hindu Phobe of the Week. And Utsada, the Hindu Phobe of the week is go ahead, do the big reveal.
Ajay, it's actually pretty sad, but she needs to be called out. Her name is Mehreen Faruqi. She's a Pakistani-born Green senator in Australia. Uh, she gave a very anti-India speech in the Australian Parliament. If I can put it that way, I'm probably not using the correct term. And criticized the Prime Minister Morrison for his cozy friendship with Modi. Again, the narrative is not very different from what is the narrative in Manan Ahmed sponsored supported event in Toronto Public Library, which was the main topic of our discussion today. It's literally the same narrative, the same perspective, the same repetition of falsehoods and strawman fallacies. So, you know, again, they are doing exactly, Mehreen Faruqi is doing exactly in Australia what the dismantle Hindutva crowd was doing in USA and Canada. And this is sad, this is unfortunate, this endangers Hindus and Indians in Australia, just like they're endangering Hindus, Sikhs, and Indian Canadians, and in Hindus and Sikhs of America. So this is sad. This is going to repeat itself again and again. We need to stand up, oppose it, expose them, and eventually, hopefully, delegitimize them for the lies that they are spreading.
So that I, our work, as long as there are people like this around, our work is never going to be done. I don't know, you would think that someone who belongs to Green Party would be open minded, would be accepting of all traditions, accepting of all faiths, and would be free of hatred. But when a person who belongs to Green Party, which supposedly believes in diversity and inclusion, goes on a tirade against a particular faith, a particular nationality, a particular ethnicity, it puts to question all that the Green Party does. And I think it's time for the Green Party to actually rein in some of these fringe elements within the Green Party. With that, I want to thank you, now to thank all our viewers for joining us today for a great great conversation on promoting Hinduphobia. We talked about the promotion of Hinduphobia in Toronto. We also talked about the caste warfare that is now taking place in Silicon Valley, and which came to a surface again with the appointment of a Hindu CEO of Twitter. I hope you join us again next week. This is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is is the contemporary American Hindu issue oriented weekly show that comes live at 11 o'clock Eastern. It is hosted by Utsav Chakrabarti, the executive director of Hindu Pact, and I am Ajay Shah. I'm the president of World Hindu Council of America. Hindu Lounge is sponsored by, or is a project of, Hindu Pact, a Hindu policy research and advocacy initiative, an initiative of World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA. Once again, I want to thank everyone for joining us, but please don't go away, because we have the final treat as always. We have a music that was created for just this episode of Hindu Lounge by a group called Decibel. And this is just an unbelievable tune. So that I was just, this comes every week, and I was just, just amazed by this particular tune. This is based on of a raga called Yamuna, and one of these days I want to invite the Decibel to actually explain the ragas. This is based on raga called Yamuna, and I'm going to play this as we close the show. So please stay behind, and we will turn our cameras off, but listen to this music because it is created just for this episode of Hindu Lounge. And I cannot thank Decibel enough for creating this amazing music. And by the way, I just want to let Decibel folks know that their last week, the music, we did a special music show, and we got so much positive feedback on that. So once again, thank you very much, Decibel. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this show. And we'll do this again next week at 11 o'clock Eastern. In the meantime, enjoy the music by Decibel as we play the Rag Yamuna that was brought to, that's specially created for this show. Thank you, Utsoda, and namaste. Thank you for joining.
Namaste.